I hate these these ridiculous social media fights that media people just like to create.
Yeah.
Because I get it. Look, that's their livelihood. They need to get and Dan Crenshaw equals engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also have to defend myself. So people ask me, well, why do you even engage? Well, I'm like, well, because you're accusing me of a crime. You accuse me of conspiring to gather a bunch of SEAL Team 6 guys and come assault you. So what he said was that text was that I would get them together and go, quote unquote, whoop his ass. Never said that, right? And so I'm like, what are we doing here?
All right, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, this is my last interview today in D.C. I've done, I think, about a dozen of them. I've asked every question I can ask. So where do you want to start here? You want to do end of year? You want to do Venezuela? You want to do what? What do you want to do?
You told us we want to do Venezuela. I mean, it's an interesting topic right now.
All right, let's do Venezuela because you know a little something about the military.
And also like what, justifying what we're doing in the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific. Actually, we just came from a briefing that Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs gave us. I thought it was pretty good. I think their explanations are good, and I think the intent is good. So where do we begin? I mean, look, we've changed the dynamic here. The war on drugs, with making it a law enforcement operation, making it an interdiction operation, it has never worked. You have to target the networks. And these networks we've defined now as terrorist networks. And there's a lot of good reason for that. They act as terrorist networks, especially the cartels in Mexico. And they really run everything. There's Tren de Aragua in Venezuela. There's the Maduro regime itself, which has been indicted by our own courts. Like him plus a lot of his senior officials at administration have been indicted on drug charges. So it's not like they're allowing this to happen. They actively manage it. It's the only country that actually does that. Like not all the countries
cooperate. It's sort of the purposeful driver of their existence in some sense.
It is. Yeah. I mean, and they, and what else do they do? I mean, they're bringing in all of the adversaries that we wouldn't want in our hemisphere. The Russians really control Maduro. The Cubans control Maduro. The Chinese are pushing in. There's hundreds of thousands of Chinese citizens that live there, working those oil fields, trying to uplift that regime. China does that very specifically. Again, China's role is more of an economic warfare as usual. And so the president is absolutely right to take these kind of bold actions, and he's also within his legal means. Once you're a designated terrorist, as we've seen plenty of times over the course of the last 25 years, yes, we can strike you, and these strikes are I think very well planned, very well vetted. There's a very rigorous process that happens with these strikes. Multi-source intelligence. We have to know what's on the boat and who's on the boat and what their intent is. Otherwise, there won't be a kinetic operation. As the administration said, this is about deterrence. And the proof of it is in the Caribbean part, there has not been a strike in 4 weeks. Why is that? Because they're having trouble finding people who will actually pilot these boats now.
Right, because you only need to blow up a couple boats before they get the signal. Right.
Then they've gotten, I think they're starting to get the message.
So having seen the intelligence, having just come from this hearing, did you see or I don't even know if you're allowed to say, but have you seen the classified video that deals with the double tap that got everybody freaked out?
I have not seen it.
But you got an explainer on...
Yeah, I mean, and just... I know from my own history how this works. So let's talk about the double tap real quick. And then, people freaked out about that. Like, you can't kill them, they're survivors. And my point would be, okay, guys, let's look at 20 years of war where we're going after Al-Qaeda or ISIS, whoever it is. And, they're in a building and we blow it up. And we see a guy run out of that building. We're not going to we don't assume that he just should not be killed. Right. They keep shooting. You take that second shot. If you miss the first shot, you take the second shot. And that's what's happening here. These are designated terrorist networks and designated terrorists. And so, yes, you can argue the morality of that all you want, but the legality of it is pretty clear.
Right. So do you think this is just a little bit of people falling for the mainstream narrative? Like, it just came out so quickly, like, oh my God, something so illegal must have happened here. And it's like, they must have been waving a white flag and da-da-da. Where to me, it seems, again, putting aside the morality, not exactly putting aside the morality, but the basic direction of it is that people agree with Trump. We've just had it with drugs coming to our shores illegally.
Yeah, and I think Trump derangement syndrome has a part to play here. Look, I think his opposition is just going to be against whatever he does just because it's him, and I think that's honestly a lot of it, and that's the cynical view. Maybe some people do have a moral question about shooting at survivors, but again, that's why I use the analogy. It's like you didn't have that moral question before under the Obama administration doing very similar things. I mean, if they're a bad guy, they're a bad guy. Land, sea, what's the difference? And so I think that analogy is important.
Right. And your argument is, having been to this briefing, that you're confident that they did the right thing within our framework.
Well, yeah. I mean, legally, I think it's very defensible.
Yeah.
I remember, these kind of measures are very defensible. Obama did it in Libya. Jefferson did it in Libya. The Barbary Pirates. Just because this authority from the executive branch goes back a long way.
Right. Let's shift altogether. No segue here. Shawn Ryan, podcaster, former Navy SEAL guy, was kind of in a sort of ancillary way going after you a little bit. I feel like you've probably got some response on that.
Yeah, I mean,
can you give us the backdrop here for people that don't know?
The backdrop's a little convoluted, but what it comes down to is this. He has accused me of the same tired old tropes that you see online, that I've seen online for years, and that have been debunked for years. This idea that I've gotten very rich off of Congress. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. People just make up numbers and they post them, and it's Dan Crenshaw, so it's clickbait. It's pure clickbait. It's pretty easy to disprove, since we actually disclose all of our trades and all of our financial disclosures. The most I've ever had in a brokerage account is about $40,000, and I have a lot less than that now. So that just puts it in perspective. This idea of making millions, and he said I hired the famous DJ Steve Aoki for my birthday party. Not true at all. I reached out to him privately when he said this a year ago, and I'm like, you can just reach out to your fellow team guy. And he never did, never asked any questions. And but then recently said that message was a threat. And it's funny because it's we can just pull up the message.
Right.
It's not a threat. I was like, hey, why don't you reach out to me? My boys are 6, and I just happen to be hanging out with them. And so he says that, well, because you said SEAL Team 6, it means you threatened me. I'm like, no, I just said they told me that. It's like, we can read this. It's not like it's not like we misunderstood a conversation here. And so, look, man, I have better things to do. We're about to go vote on a bill that streamlines permitting that we desperately need in our district for building oil and gas pipelines, for building infrastructure. On Thursday, I'll be putting up my bill to stop funding for children's hospitals that do transgender treatments on minors. This is big stuff that we're trying to work on. I work on flood mitigation, right? We've been able to get $200 million or so back to my district for flood mitigation projects. Because remember, when I ran for Congress, that was in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. Mm-hmm. Every single day, we are trying to do something that actually matters. I mean, this month, it's all about healthcare. And, I'm on the health subcommittee for energy and commerce. I hate these ridiculous social media fights that media people just like to create.
Yeah.
Because I get it. Look, that's their livelihood. They need and Dan Crenshaw equals engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also have to defend myself. So people ask me, well, why do you even engage? Well, I'm like, well, because you're accusing me of a crime. You accuse me of conspiring to gather a bunch of SEAL Team 6 guys and come assault you. So what he said was that text was that I would get them together and go, quote unquote, whoop his ass. Never said that, right? And so I'm like, what are we doing here? And it's just the internet is blown up all about it. You told me, I envy you that you haven't even seen it. Yeah. It's such a distraction from real things that we're working on.
Right. Well, every now and again, you just miss a story. You know what I mean? And you go, boy, I'm lucky I missed that one. And somehow this is one that I just missed.
It's just so ridiculous. It really is. But again, we've got real things to work on. I've got an opponent whose main argument against me right now, and this is the primary opponent, by the way, the guy who considers himself a real Trump advocate. One of his main arguments that he put a website up about me, number one, because Dan Crenshaw voted for Trump's big, beautiful bill. It's like, are you crazy? This guy has voted against flood mitigation efforts in our state. He's a state rep. Sorry, I should have said that. He's a state rep and a politician longer than I have. in a state where it's, by the way, very easy to get things done because the Republicans run everything.
Right.
You should have a good record. He's voted with Democrats to oppose property tax decreases in Texas. Like, what? I don't even know what his reasoning was for that. He voted. This is a guy who voted against bulletproofing police cars. I mean, it's just wild stuff. Like, you're against flooding, you're against Trump's big beautiful bill, you're against bulletproofing police cars, and you're telling me that you're coming at me from the right.
It doesn't really sound like it's going to fly in Texas.
Well, this guy's lost multiple elections. He's lost Kevin Brady. He's lost to our Montgomery County's current county judge, and he'll lose again. Look, because once people see the record and understand, look, what are we really voting on? We're voting on what I'm going to do for you, not some stuff that somebody else is making up, or what, or this tit for tat about reputational assaults. It's about what I'm going to do, and people know what I'm going to do. I'm the lead on everything that has to do with the cartels and the fentanyl problem. I'm the one who goes and does and creates that legislation, leads that, and has led that task force in the past. I work on defense intelligence. I literally chair the subcommittee. It's a huge responsibility, keeping America safe. I work the energy issues for my state because I'm on energy and commerce, and I work the healthcare issues for my state, energy and commerce. I had the chance to be hugely influential when we did the Medicaid reform that really saved us over $1 trillion in the long term without really hurting the system itself, even though Democrats claim that. Longer story. We can debunk everything they say about it. So that's real work. That's stuff that, that's the reason you run.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of cons to running in politics, as you well know, right? Especially if you would go on Saturday Night Live.
You've been to real war.
Yeah, but then that was at least black and white.
Yeah.
Politics is really something. But my first day in politics, I'm on Saturday Night Live, and so you become a target naturally.
Yeah.
And I expect some of that. When it comes to the Shawn Ryan thing, look, I expect a huge degree of criticism, people making things up, but you can't lie about me committing a crime, whether it's insider trading or whether it's conspiring to assault you.
Right.
These are criminal things, and I do have to defend my reputation. My daughter's going to read this stuff one day. And so I do it with where I try to put the least amount of effort possible into it so I can continue to do the job that I was sent here to do by my constituents.
So speaking of that job, what is it that Republicans are going to have to do over the next 11 months to not have a massive loss come November 26th?
Man, you're getting a million different answers on that one. I think we need to figure out healthcare this month, right? Because we're a looming. So we're going to vote on healthcare bills that I think are really good this week, but they're going to be partisan. They shouldn't be. Democrats should agree with what we're voting on, but they don't, right? It's all about opposition for them. But we are going to face, just like we faced before, another government shutdown, and it's going to be about these enhanced premium tax credits, right? These tax credits for Obamacare that came in the wake of COVID. And we're going to have to figure out a way to manage that. I'm part of that conversation. I have some really good ideas, and I think there's actually a path forward. And I think an opportunity to remake Obamacare with a very conservative face on it. And I could get into the exquisite details on that, but I don't think we have time.
Yeah.
And it's complicated. Healthcare policy is complicated. You do that, I think we've got some wins under our belt. We've secured the border. That's what people wanted. Let's get prices down. And you get prices down with deregulation. We know what we got to do. We really got to sell people better on the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut Act, because that's exactly what it was. I don't think people knew really that their taxes were about to go up in December massively. We prevented that.
Right. So
we've got to say that a lot
So
more.
some of this you think will be once the bill kicks in essence. That's what several people have said to me today, that people will then start seeing the fruits of it. Right now they kind of just don't see what it did.
Well, the thing is what it did was stop your taxes from increasing. They were automatically by law going to increase. And I bet you most Americans weren't prepared for that. And I think we need to say that more often.
Yeah.
The Democrats are literally running on the midterms on the idea that your taxes should have been raised, because they all wanted that.
Yeah.
They did not want the 2017 tax cuts to be extended. That's effectively what we did. we've got to say that more. I think that's why the president, I think, changed the name from Big Beautiful Bill to, I think, something more accurate, which was Working Families Tax Cut Act. Because that's really what it was. And there was more to it than just not increasing your taxes. There's no tax on tips. There was no tax on Social Security, SALT deductions, but also not for the rich. So when Democrats are like, well, you just cut taxes for billionaires, I always just say, tell me which provision does that. Because in fact, we managed to make every single tax, if there was a tax cut, only apply to the middle class. So we just got to say that more. We got to say what we're doing. We got to be confident about it and deliver on the agenda, because the agenda is popular. And, the infighting is terrible and shouldn't happen. And we go into all the things we're watching right now in our own movement.
I got my own version of it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're in the fight.
Yeah.
It has to be done. But in the end, our job in Congress is deliver on the agenda, deliver on Trump's agenda, because the agenda is popular and it works for the American people.
Enjoy the break. Merry Christmas and good luck in 26.
If you're craving more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics, check out our politics playlist right here. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.